All right, let's get going. Welcome, everyone. I'm Bob Fitzgerald, Strategic Account Advisor here at Facilisgroup, and I'm thrilled to be with you today alongside two industry veterans to talk all things power of samples to sell. This is going to be a practical, insight-packed session you don't want to miss. But before we dive in, I want to take a few seconds to remind you of an incredible opportunity here at Facilisgroup. As we enter one of the most critical and opportunity-rich seasons in the promotional product space, now is the perfect time to sharpen your strategy, rise above the noise, and truly drive meaningful growth. Whether you're aiming to re-engage existing clients, tap into new markets, or simply finish the year strong, this is your moment. With that in mind, this is your last call to apply for our final 360 program built specifically for experienced sales reps who are ready to grow their existing book of business and take their performance to the next level. The next course launches on October 8th and will run through the remainder of the year. We've carefully paced this round to navigate the holidays and the busyness of the season so that you can still focus, stay on track, and ultimately yield the kind of impressive results we've seen all year long. To put it into perspective, our January cohort averaged 313% growth, and our April group averaged 170% growth. These are real results achieved by your peers who committed to the structure and principles 360 provides. Now, I'm thrilled to have you join us today for our Community Circle webinar, Turning Samples into Sales. Whether you're a seasoned achiever or just starting to explore the power of spec sampling, this session is designed to spark ideas, share best practices, and help you elevate your client presentations. Spec samples aren't just a nice to have, they're a strategic tool. They can bridge the gap between concept and commitment, helping clients visualize the final product and feel confident in their decisions. But how do we use them effectively? What programs work best? And how do we overcome common objections? I'm joined today by Henigan, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Brand IQ, and Brian Porter, Chief Revenue Officer for Starline. Two industry veterans with great knowledge of using samples to turn prospects into clients and accelerate conversations to completion of the sale. Today, we'll dive into how often and when to use spec samples, the impact of decorated versus blank samples, budgeting strategy and turnaround expectations, packaging tips that make your samples resonate, and much more. This is a collaborative space, so I encourage you to put your questions into the chat Q&A feature. And let's turn those samples into sales together. Haley, Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. Haley,
thanks for having us, Bob.
Absolutely. Haley, let's start with you. How do you currently track the ROI of spec samples sent to prospects?
Yeah, so we have two different routes that we go. We have the job tag that allows you to see the conversion on that specific spec and if that turned into a job. But we also tag on the contact level, and we have three different tags for that: spec 1, 2, and 3, and then sample 1, 2, and 3 if it's like a blank or a random sample, so we can see how it's impacting both the account overall, and then how that spec directly converted if it turned into a sell.
Great. Then, are your clients more likely to move forward when they receive a decorated spec versus a blank sample?
Definitely. So we would start with the spec, I would say, is the highest conversion rate that you have. I think the industry standard is somewhere around 25%, and we sit somewhere in that likelihood as well. Right under that, decorated, and under that, blank. It also helps you guide your clients so they know what decoration styles they have and where they should be decorating, so they're not shooting something off the wall that, you know, doesn't make sense to go on that product, a location that isn't going to work for the factory.
And then, Brian, from your side of things, what types of samples, spec, blank, random, do you guys find at Starline that have proven most effective and that you see helps increase those close rates?
Yeah, like Haley said, I mean, definitely the highest conversion rate is going to be something with a logo on it, right? You know, when people get that and it's that next level, we do a lot of sampling, you know, at Starline. For us, it's important to put product into people's hands so they can kind of touch and feel. But when they get that product and it's got the logo on it, and then we go next level, and whenever possible, we try to personalize those or put some form of identifying variable data on those. that's where you really see that next level conversion, because it's just that additional touch. So we find that those perform exceptionally well for us. And we're seeing, usually with the industry, anywhere from that 10, 15, 20, 20, up to 25%, Haley mentioned, we're seeing closer to about a 45% conversion when we take that next step. So
That's great. Now, asking both of you here, can you share examples where samples directly contributed to closings of sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had one scenario kind of towards the end of last year. We had an opportunity for 20,000 jackets. And we were up against one other person, and we offered to bring in samples of those items. And, at the time we didn't know, but the competitor did not also offer to bring in those samples. But taking it a step further, we had them embroidered, we had them personalized with the recipient's name so they could have the entire touch and feel, the packaging it was supposed to go in. They got to experience exactly what their end user would experience, and that sealed the deal for us with that. There's another scenario. We did a golf shirt campaign. It's one specific sales group, so not for our entire team, but we sent out 6 mailers of golf shirts. And we know these people constantly buy for golf tournaments. And out of that, 3 of those people bought the exact shirt that we put into their hands. The other 3 also purchased something for golf within that, time range. I don't know if it was a month or 2 months, but the exact shirt that we put in their hands was converted into a sell. And then one other example we did was the Starline 3-in-1 tumbler we had done for 3 accounts that we kind of had done maybe one-off orders with, but we weren't like an approved vendor or like even a vendor partner. We had just done random here and there things for. I can't say that directly from that this converted a sell, but the 2 out of those 3 people that we sent to are now enterprise clients for us. And we did logo on one side, name on the other side. And those actual people at that point we did know were buyers, and those are pretty decent size accounts for us now. So taking it the extra step for the personalization definitely, I think, was an extra touch for them that made them think of us.
great job, Haley. Thank you for that. And that is so good to hear, because it really is the differentiator. It surprises me how many people don't take that next step, right? And in your first example where they probably thought they had the in, and, you went that next extra step, which is huge. And just going back quick before I answer your question, like the personalization on these things, like as you're out there and you're planting these seeds and you're doing spec sampling, it doesn't always have to be based around like this very specific program. And in that instance, Haley and her team, personalize those and put those in people's hands. And sometimes you may not see that result, but because it is personalized, they're going to hold on to that, right? It's not going to get passed to, the intern who's in for the summer and passed into hands that aren't going to be buyers. But eventually that will come back around, and they're thinking not only of, that product, hopefully, but they're also thinking of Haley and her team. And that's where it really culminates in strengthening that relationship. But to answer your question, Bob, it happens to us all the time. I mean, really, that's where it comes down to. And we had an amazing opportunity with a nationwide beverage company, and they were looking at multiple different items that they wanted to use reward points to redeem, right? And we knew that we were up against some competition, some other brand products that were out there as well. And we took the next step of doing proactive spec sampling with the logo on this great product, with their names on there and some other fun, kind of nickname type things. And we pitched the idea through our distributor partner of, kind of having fun with it and letting all these people personalize. And they went with it. And it ended up being, there was an excess of about 75,000 pieces that were redeemed on this one singular product. And I don't think it comes to fruition if we hadn't put the product in people's hands so they could touch and feel. So
it's great. So Brian, can you share a little bit more about Starline's program and some of the things that set you apart as distributors are coming to look for you guys for samples? And then on top of that, Talk about the flexibility within your team and responding to last minute requests.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, um, you know, COVID happens. We're just trying to find a way to, to stay in front of people, to help them stay relevant. Right. And so we sat down, we looked at what we could do, and we came up with, at that time, it was called our Spec 12 program. Okay. It's now bumped up to Spec 15, but the gist of the program was for $12, you could pick any drinkware item in the entire line. It included full 4-color process, logo, which is our true color. We personalized at no additional cost. That included the shipping cost. And then things that really separated us out were the fact that within 3 days, my inside sales team would, specifically based around that client, build out what we call our idea books, but it's, just a great a thought book, or whatever you want to call it. But it had 15, 20, 25 items in there, personally branded with that logo, built around that industry, right? So if it was maybe a manufacturer, it had manufacturing and it had automotive and those different types of products in there. And what we saw was, maybe it wasn't always the drinkware piece that turned into an order, but people would get this lookbook and they would flip through there and go, I already bought drinkware, but I love this cooler, or I've been looking for a speaker or a power bank or whatever it should be. So that's where we really saw our conversion rate go up. And so I think the difference between us and other programs is we're personalizing, as I talked about earlier. And then just that follow-up component makes a big difference. We're just trying to make the lives of our distributor partners, our Facilis Nation, easier, right? And a lot of times that helps. And as far as flexibility, we want to put the right products in people's hands. And so, if there's something that is out there that you want to, to get into people's hands, there's a 99.9% chance we're going to do it, and we're going to do it on your time frame, and we're going to get it there exactly as you want it. And we appreciate the partnership, and it's a collaboration. There's skin in the game from the distributor side, and then obviously there's skin in the game from our side too. So it works, and it continues to work.
So as we get into Q4 can really kind of make or break a year for a distributor. So Haley, asking you first on this one, how do you educate your team on leveraging samples during seasonal campaigns or holiday purchases?
Yeah, so we do two different things. One is that our marketing team really coordinates a lot of outreach for our sales team. So we do every single quarter, at least, if not more, a mailer, and part of their sample budget is allocated towards these participating in these mailers. So all they have to do is send us a list. We send them a flyer saying, hey, we're going to coordinate the packaging, the messaging, the product. This is the price to participate. Let me know how many you want and create a list builder, and we'll have it kitted and send it out. We'll send you the tracking when it's done. And you have a week to do your follow-up on those mailers and report back how that went. So that's one way as a business that we support our sales team, and having those touch points that we know we have to have in advance. But the other thing that we do is every single month, at the beginning of the month, in our Monday morning sales meeting, the team is required to bring a spec that's already ordered. It's physically there. They're sharing it with the rest of the team, and they're sharing their strategy for it. And so that ends up sparking a lot of conversation around, okay, holidays coming up, this buyer I think it'd be really good for. And it feeds the whole group. And they're constantly being kind of, for lack of better words, forced to participate, because there's constantly opportunities to get a really good deal on a spec. But if you're constantly busy with, inbound client things, you're not thinking about it unless you are going to be the one showing up to the meeting with nothing, and nobody wants to be that person. And so we kind of try to incorporate things that, keep it top of mind for everyone. On one side, they're, allowed to think of the idea themselves, bring it to the table. And then on the other side, it's easy. They don't have to think about it. You just tell me who you want it to go to and we'll handle it, but make sure that you're calling and kind of seeing how that went over.
And then Brian, from the supplier side, how do you guys handle those campaign changes, seasonal campaign changes?
Yeah. So I think so much is put on like fourth quarter, right? That kind of thing. For us, I actually really, really love to start planting those seeds earlier in the year too, right? So I think it's important, and Haley's team does an amazing job of that. We've got little things that we do during the fourth quarter, but our big push with our partners is Q1 through Q3. And it is about, so we've taken that concept, that Spec 15 concept, we put it into play with different brand partners. Like this year, we did a month of Stanley, we did a month of coolers, those types of things. And I think it's important to plant those seeds early so that we hit their sales cycle. It seems like everyone is on a different buying cycle. So that's the single most important thing for us. And then when you get into the fourth quarter, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. I don't always think it's about closing the sale. I think it's about strengthening the relationship too. So, we still do our spec samples, but sometimes it ends up being more of a thank you, a gift, just to stay visible and to stay forward facing. I think that's always so important that you're looking into 26, what's around the corner, right? So we focus 12 months a year on spec sampling.
So looking into 26, we got a question from Mark Smith from our community, and Mark's asking, does anyone provide spec samples in order to generate that opportunity? So as you're looking into the new year, or you're looking to generate an opportunity with a new client or a new prospect, Haley, do you guys use spec samples to kind of generate those leads with those prospects?
Absolutely. Yeah, everyone on our team does it in different ways. We have one rep that she just is so creative. She's constantly coming up with, she knows a lot about these clients' branding guidelines and what they're trying to accomplish as a whole. So she'll take like their, mission statement and turn it into these little emblems and put it on a bag. And it can be like, it doesn't have to be a fully custom product for you to do a design that plays into what they're trying to accomplish as a business. And I think she has generated a lot of opportunity out of that, not being asked to, both with prospects and with clients. For a prospect, it's amazing because it shows that you are trying to learn about them. Even if you miss the mark a little bit, you're trying to learn about them and you're putting yourself out there to take it a step further than even just doing, their logo, doing something that pull it from their website and, make it interesting, or do a card that goes with it of why you think this product, aligns with what they're, doing as a whole. But I think getting ahead of the game and planning out, even with the Facilis reminders of this person bought this last year, planning ahead in that way, I think is amazing. And yes, we definitely do that in those two ways.
Yeah, and that kind of starts to answer another question that came in from Kelsey. She was asking what would be an example of a personalized touch outside of adding a logo. So that's kind of a great piece right there, is adding somebody's their motto or kind of a mission statement to something and doing the homework there. So that's another great example of how to use those.
Yeah, I think diving in and just getting deeper in understanding what's important, right? At that level. And that information, Haley touched on it, that information is out there. Like if you take the time, there's a lot of people that, they'll just throw a logo over and say, throw this on 10 products. Or, they're not really putting a lot of thought behind it. It's more of that shotgun approach. But I think the precision of what's important, where do they stand? Maybe they've got a sustainability campaign. What's behind what they're doing, right? And like with my team, I'll make sure that they go through and they look at large order reports and specs that have delivered. And then maybe they're going a different direction, right? And they're finding out what is important. Or maybe it's as simple as they have like a favorite sports team and you're doing something, you're putting that in front of them and you're tying that relationship together, but you know what's important to them. And they're going to remember that in the long run. So
Haley, how do you train your sales reps to use samples effectively within the sales cycle?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say we have like a solidified process. There's not we try to stay away from when X happens, then do X with these type of things, because we think it's really important for your sales team to become intuitive and to be empowered to take the risk if they think the perceived value is worth it. Like that, to me, is a really big part of, if you don't ever take the risk, you may never get the account. And so to us, if it's a $25 spec and I may not think it's worth it because I think this account's going nowhere, I think this contact's going nowhere, but it's this person's account, they have the autonomy to take that risk, really wherever it makes the most sense. Because we split it in two ways. We do specs to get in the door with people, but we also do it to close a large opportunity. But I'm never going to tell a rep no, that they can't do a spec there, that doesn't make sense, because if, you know, trial and error is important. If they find out that it didn't work, then they know that now, and they know that this person doesn't respond to that and it's not important to them. But learning those things is really important, particularly in younger reps, like not when you're not very seasoned and you don't know what's going to hit. I think that's how you build out a team that is intuitive and empowered to make decisions that make sense.
Makes perfect sense. So how do you guys use the CRM tools that we've offered to track sample engagement and conversion rates?
So we definitely could be better about this, I will admit. I think that's where it's tough, because you have to have a team that is actively tagging and doing all of these things. So we have a little bit of a view into it, but it definitely could be better. But, you know, kind of the things I mentioned before, we do the job tags and we do the contact tags, and we analyze these and we take them into our monthly meetings with the reps. You know, and we talk about, out of your togas, you know, what key prospects are we missing the mark with? What can we do different? And so we kind of analyze it on that level. I don't know that we have like a solidified conversion rate other than the 25% that I mentioned. I think it's really closer to 27 for us, but we're not tagging everything. So we're not getting the best view of everything that we're doing.
So there, right there is a great plug for the new tag release that came out in the summer release. So make sure you're all using those to tag your jobs and be able to track your engagement there. All right. What's the best way to package and deliver spec samples so it resonates more with your client?
Well, one, yes, I think you should do custom packaging. On our internal like Brand IQ promo site, we this year built out packaging for like the key items that we typically give. We built one for drinkware. We did one that's like a little gift box. And then we did one that is like a fully sustainable made from recycled material. It's compostable box. So we're kind of trying to hit those three key areas. Every spec gets packaged into something from that little line. And then, unless of course it happened to have custom packaging come along with it. I know there's some that you can do that, so it doesn't count. But we really encourage our reps to do this as a in-person visit, even if it's just a quick drop by. Take it that extra step farther and try to create a conversation around it. You can send it in the mail, but you get a lot more from optimizing your time with someone in person.
And then, Brian, what do you see? Are reps typical or distributors typically sending direct from you guys, or do they bring it in-house to get it in that custom packaging if that's not something you guys are doing on their behalf?
So I would say it's probably a 50-50, honestly. Like sometimes people like the simplicity of just, I'm going to get this in. I know it's going to go, right to the buyer. But there are a lot of people who, as Haley mentioned, they love that personal touch. And I do think that makes a big difference, because then you can walk in, you can kind of explain it, whether it's in custom packaging or not. I do think, and we've started to go a little bit more toward that. I think people like the experience of a box, or that kind of thing that just takes it to that next level. But honestly, if I had to look at the numbers, I would guess the conversion rate is probably higher when someone is walking in, personally delivering, having a bit of a conversation, explaining the why, versus a product just kind of showing up and maybe not always knowing where that came from or who that came from and that type of thing. So I would always advocate for more in that area. So.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more there. So Christina asked, where do you see majority of your focus on samples and spec samples going to? Is this for prospects? Is this for current clients, or new prospects, or current or existing clients, really? Haley, where do you guys see the majority of that going?
I think it's both. I would say more than anything though, like if it's a prospect, it's most likely a prospect within an account that we already have, and are just looking to grow in. But probably that bucket, and then your clients, and then we do require some level of outreach to someone completely new. But I would say that that's a little bit harder to get people to participate in than the other. So
sure,
prospects within an account and your current clients.
Absolutely. And Brian, let's kind of change gears a little bit and go back to how you guys operate at Starline. Do you have an SLA for sample delivery and support?
So not really, I mean, we kind of outline our expectations, right? For spec sampling. For my outside team, for example, I mean, they've got a budget that is dedicated to spec sampling and to putting product into people's hands. I think the one thing that we do look at, and that we expect is, if you're putting product into people's hands and there's no results, that's probably not really money well invested. There are people that really do take it to heart, and they run with those and they see the results, right? And so, for us, we want to make sure that we get things out, we get it there on time, that it's looks spectacular. We know just based on Starline quality that the product is always going to deliver. And then for us, it's the follow-up, right? Like, I think that's another thing that maybe separates us out is we've got multiple layers of touch points, the first being the idea book. And then within a few days of that, my inside sales team reaches out and says, hey, Haley, just wanted to make sure if we shipped it to her, did you receive your product? Anything else we can help with? How did it look? And then within about a week after that, my outside team follows up and goes, hey, how did that go? Did you get any response back? And it's good because there's times where we reach out and they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot this is sitting on my desk. I didn't deliver it. Everyone gets busy. So it's also that nice prompt to make sure that everyone is doing their part. So
absolutely. So then, how do you determine, Haley, I guess this is more for you to start out with, how do you determine which prospects receive spec samples?
It's really tied to the togas and those monthly meetings. So they come into that conversation with, these are the top accounts I'm trying to grow with, and these are the prospects I haven't really had movement with. We determine, we're going to plan something for this group. And I'd say that's like the primary way that we cohesively as a business plan these things. And then, you have on the individual level, each rep is, going to do it to accelerate a deal closure or to close something that's already an opportunity. But we're looking at it at a bigger picture of these are the accounts you're trying to go in. If you don't have someone today that's a prospect to send something to this month, then your goal throughout this month is to find a contact, ask for a referral. And that's every single month. If you don't have someone on your list that this would make sense for, then your goal is to find someone. So that also is another way to kind of trigger that bigger conversation of, are you asking for referrals? How are you growing within this group? So that I would say that's our biggest strategy.
Where do you think is more impactful? The rep sending a spec that they think is a good idea that a customer or a prospect would like, or are they doing more of the sending specs where clients have shown an actual interest in the item? Where do you think you get more of the return there?
I think it's both. I I think they're valuable for different reasons. The one where you know that they have an interest, maybe you have a deal you're trying to close, maybe you don't, but you know they're interested in this product. It's showing that you, are going to take it the extra step and put it in their hands so they can actually touch and feel and make that decision for themselves. But on the other side, it's also showing that you're a strategic partner. I'm taking the weight off of you, and I'm thinking about what I think would be good for you. And I'm leaning on my vendors for their expertise of what moves well within the industry I'm talking about, what moves well within the position that of the person that I'm talking to. I think that the second question is more of a long-term strategic plan, but it also provides a lot of value because now you're a partner. You're not just someone that you call when you need your 10 t-shirts. I'm thinking about you and what makes sense for you.
I think people get so stuck in the rut of buying maybe hey, it's this time of year, we're going to do our drinkware or we're going to do our jackets or whatever it is. And I do think there is that room, they've obviously had success with that and people kind of maybe get used to that. But at the same time, there's room to expand that, right? And it's up to us to make sure that Haley understands, hey, these are some really great new hot moving items that you may want to position. And they would, ultimately at the end user stage, I don't think they ever see those, they're not, having a chance to see those things. And so I think it's so important to put new ideas because then it also, not only are you providing amazing product, but you're also providing, new thought and concepts and putting, you're getting creative.
So let me ask you both, what are the most common objections or hurdles that your clients have around ordering without seeing samples?
That is a tough one. So I would say it's something these days that we're just offering proactively more than we're being asked for. Maybe like 5 years ago, definitely 10 years ago, it was constantly asking for samples on every single order. I don't think we see that as much these days. With your veteran people who have been ordering promo for forever, we have people like that who constantly want to see it. But it's funny because we actually have a certain policy in place, because if you don't see it and then you're upset, it's a problem. So anything over $5,000, any order over $5,000, you're required to get a pre-pro of, and that can be, done as a spec when we're still like in the quoting stage, or it can be done before the order is run. But I feel like we don't see that pushback to get a sample that we're not offering as much as maybe we used to.
Yeah. It's interesting when we came up with this concept and started to put a dollar figure to it, right? We were a little concerned because, the industry had kind of built this culture of like everything for free, give me everything for free. And we were like, do you think people are going to invest $12, $15? In Canada, it's slightly more. And the response was spectacular. Really, I mean, people putting skin in the game and being involved in the process was amazing. And so I was so pleasantly surprised. And honestly, we don't get a lot of pushback on specs. I think people see the value there, and there's people that are really never going to do specs, right? And they're just, they're more reactionary to things. But for those people that are doing it and see the value, they tend to be the ones that are growing and really seeing, even in crazy economic times, they're still seeing growth because they're taking that next step. So we don't get a lot of pushback, but.
So Haley, let's go back to you talked about empowering your reps to make their best decisions on when to use samples. In addition to that, do you guys use a sample allowance or budget, and how are they structured?
We do, yeah. It's based on a percentage of sales from the prior year, and that percentage is then split into 2 buckets. And this is actually our first year doing this. It used to just be that percentage was your sample allowance. You could spend it however you want to spend it. But what we found with that is it didn't create like that strategic alignment between management and the rep. So now, and prior to this, we were doing coordinated marketing outreach. Last year, we did every single month, we did a mailer, but the participation was a little low because they would have to buy in. This year, their marketing budget is kind of what we're calling it now, more than like a sample budget, it goes towards that. So it's baked in that they have an opportunity for the specs, the random samples, and the coordinated marketing outreach mailers. And so that's how we've kind of split it up. And I feel like that's really worked for us because it's allowed us to be a little bit more strategic than we were in the past. And it's looped us all into the conversation of who you're sending this to, how is it working, do we need to try something different?
Then as far as those budgets go, when it comes time for samples, the decision to return samples versus hanging on them, do you have thresholds for that that help you guys determine return versus reuse? Or what's your process overall for managing those high value returns?
Yeah, so we don't have like a set in stone process because it's kind of tied to their budget that they have personally. And so it's up to the rep how they want to manage that. I would say probably for the most part, anything that's above like $200, they're going to have a more concerted effort to try and figure out what they're going to do with that. And under that, they maybe just, you did the sample, move on if it didn't go anywhere. So it's up to them.
Brian, what are you seeing on your end? Do you guys see a lot of returns with samples, or are the distributors hanging on to those, reusing those? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, for us, especially in the States, once it's out there, honestly. And for us, whether it's in the end user's hands, whether it's in our distributor partners' hands, it's way more valuable there than it would be sitting in our warehouse, just waiting for someone to put a logo on it, right? So, we build that into our marketing and sales budget every year. And then in Canada, they approach things a little bit differently. They've got more, like a lending library type philosophy. So a lot of times they'll come to a specific showroom, borrow a product, bring it back, that type of thing. So it kind of depends on geographically where you're at. But for us, ultimately, we want you to have our products in your hands.
So Haley, we talked about tags earlier, and Kelsey asked a question from our audience today. What's a good tagging strategy to start out at? So you guys are kind of using the tags, job tags, client tags. If you could start over, how would you start the tagging process over on your end? And then are you tracking that? How do you track that life cycle of that effort?
So, I mean, I think I like the way that we have tags set up. There's 3 categories for the job specific tag. And I could talk about tags all day. So this is
that's our next one.
I'm like thinking of all the other reasons that we use tags that are amazing. But so for the job tags, you have the spec tag, you have the sample tag, and then you have the mailer tag. And so if it had to, for that specifically, it had to directly correlate to us sending you something, and either the conversation sparked and you ordered something else from that, or you ordered exactly what we sent you. And now that I'm talking, maybe we should distinguish that even further, like this is the exact item, or it's, just sparked a conversation and produced an order. But so we have that, so you can see the conversion of that specific mailer, but we also have on the contact level, the same ones, those same 3 buckets, but then they're broken out into 1, 2, and 3. And that really is because at the time we didn't have like the individual job tags. So we were trying to see it, as a whole. If I've sent you 1 spec or 1 sample, what is your account doing? If I've sent you 2 things in this year, what are we doing now? Like, is it growing in proportion with the amount of outreach I've done to you, of the amount of goods that I put in your hands? Are different ones creating different changes? And I think that works. I think we need to be better about actually implementing the tag and saying, hey, at the end of the month, everyone needs to make sure that their jobs are tagged appropriately, that their contacts are tagged appropriately. Please go back and make sure that you've, reconciled this. That's probably where we could be better.
So as we kind of wrap up here, I think we've kind of gone through, we've answered some questions from the audience here. What's one thing that you think would be important, Haley, for our community to know about how you guys utilize samples? that we didn't chat through through any of our questions today?
I think it's just, we talk about this to the sales team all the time. It's about being intentional with what you're doing. If you're just sending a million things to a million people and you're not doing the follow-up, you're not going to get where you're trying to go. Be intentional about what you're sending, to who you're sending it to, and how you're following up with them. And our strategy could look completely different to yours because your book of business looks completely different, but just make sure you're being thoughtful about what you're doing and those extra steps of the personalization, thinking about their core values and thinking about the business initiatives that they have that they're trying to accomplish. Do a little bit of LinkedIn research, taking it that extra step, because if you're not doing it, someone else is doing it.
Brian, what do you think?
I think it's the consistency, right? I think people come out of the gates in things like this and they get all excited and they're, we're going to go spec crazy, and they do it for a quarter and then the follow-up's not there. And then they get into, a summer season or something like that. I think it's just more, it's being deliberate. Like Kayla said, it's being intentional and just, the consistency of a good year-round program where you're planting these thoughts and ideas and seeds, and then making sure there's reasons to revisit that, right? I think it's so important just to keep the momentum going versus a short burst and then oh, I forgot all about that and it's December, right? So
Absolutely. Well, Haley, Brian, thank you so much for being here today. Truly appreciate it. I think that this conversation is really going to kind of help folks as they start utilizing their samples going into close out their years and make sure that they are using the sample process in the right way to, again, grow their sales and finish strong on the year. So again, thank you so much for being here. And everybody, thanks for joining in today and have a great week.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you all.
Bye, guys.